Welcome back to the channel. This is the Action Figure Grader, and today's video is going to only cover Palitoy Trilogos. Most of them were sold last night over on AFA/CIB's eBay page. They had a ton of very high grade vintage Palitoy Trilogos, and there were some insane prices. And I've got a few others that were not CIB related, but I did actually pick up one of these. I did. So this is the first item I picked up in about 9 weeks. And very happy to get it. I probably overpaid a smidge for it, but relative to what some of these others sold for, very happy with it. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look. First, the non-CIB items. First, this one is an unpunched ADAT driver, and it was in pretty good shape overall. It had some very light edge wear to it. And, you know, again, it was unpunched, though. Blister was in pretty good shape. And kind of remember this price because this one is certainly not an AFA 85, but an AFA 85 did sell, and it gives you a nice comparison as to, you know, what an ungraded one will sell for versus, you know, that's maybe not quite as nice versus an AFA graded one. And this is kind of a strategy I've taken for a number of my Trilogos is roll the dice. Try to grade it yourself if you think that it'll grade high. It doesn't always work out, but a lot of the times it does. I bought this one, this particular character card back combination on Facebook probably about 3 or 4 years ago, and I paid, I think, $375. It was a lot of money. It was ungraded, and I did send it off to CAS, Collector Archive Services, for grading, and it came back with straight 85s. So that one worked out for me. And I've, of course, had others where I was like, it's on the borderline, and, you know, it would come in a little bit lower than I expected. I think this one grades out at about an 80, and that's just my guess. It's hard. It's always hard to know what the blister score is going to be, but just looking at it pretty close up, I think it would probably get an overall 80 grade. So anyway, this one did sell for $305 at an auction. Here was one that was a buy it now that was picked up by a friend of mine, AFA 80 Plus Imperial Dignitary unpunched, no price sticker. And it also did have the Clipper catalog on the back. So this was a nice example, and it was listed for $450. I actually did send it out to my Patreon supporters in a buy it now alert, but he bought it, insta-bought it right before I sent that Patreon alert out. So happy for him. This was a beauty, though. This was very nice. That's a price I'd pay in a heartbeat. And I think there might be one more Imperial Dignitary in this batch. If not, it'll be in the next one. On to the CIB items, and the prices were interesting. They were kind of all over the place. They were all very high-grade examples, lesser characters like my poor friend Lobot here. And this one was an AFA 85 Lobot. He's actually a sneakily tough character to find on the Trilogos. And this one is the German Parker version of the Trilogos. You can tell because it's got the longer, thinner hang tab area, and the backs, the yellow on the backs of these card backs are bright yellow. And it's weird because some of these AFA card backs actually note it on the label. They say German Parker or just Parker sometimes in parentheses. But I get the feeling that some of these were graded a while ago, or at least several years ago, and don't account for the fact that it's the German Parker variation card back. I've got some that are labeled, some that aren't in my collection. This one is not labeled that, but it's an AFA 85, sold for $460. Pretty good deal there. I think I paid around $404, somewhere in there, for my AFA 80. And so I thought $460 was a very good deal. The Gamorrean Guard was an AFA 80 Plus, and this one had the KB Toys price sticker in the upper right-hand corner. You can see their rounded corner blister. And this is one I picked up in an auction that was an AFA 80. This one was an 80 Plus, and the blister was in better shape than mine, and it did sell for a little bit more than mine. It sold for $511, which I think was a pretty good deal relative to even some of the AFA 85s that I've seen sell in the, I don't remember what the price was now, but it was significantly higher than $511. So good deal there. The Ugnaught, this is one I did bid on because I'm still trying to find it. I bid on probably 4 or 5 now, Trilogo Ugnaughts, and I always lose. And I finished second on this auction. I think I bid $510 or so, and it sold for $527. So maybe second or third. But this one again was the German Parker version, AFA 85. So 527 was the final winning bid on that. That's kind of in line with what I expected, obviously, given that I finished second or third in the bidding. But anyway, that's one I'm still hunting for. Just doesn't work out sometimes. And it worked out great for me because I was able to go a little bit higher than I wanted to on the one I did end up winning, which I'll show you in a second. Lumat, this is one I've already got in my collection. This one is an AFA 80, made in Mexico. Obviously, all Lumats are, whether they're on Kenner cardbacks or Trilogos or Kenner Canada. If it's got a Lumat inside, it's made in Mexico. 80, 85, 85. And I don't know if that means that the figure is made in Mexico or the figures were imported to the Europe for final assembly, which is what I think it is, given that this has got the German Parker hang tab, and on the back you can tell it's very clearly the brighter, vibrant yellow. So I assume that they just import the figures, and when they say made in Mexico, even on the card backs, I think it's just referring to the figures. I don't know that for a fact. Maybe someone can fill me in there, but given that it's got the German Parker card back, I would just assume that they're importing the figures and assembling them in Europe. But anyway, that one did sell for $588. I've got a AFA 80 Lumat, and I think I've actually got the same subscores for my Lumat, and I just bought it this year for $375 shipped, or thereabouts. Maybe it was $385 shipped. So pleasantly surprised to see this one sell for as high as it did at $588. Here was an AFA 85 Lando Skiff Guard, very good shape there, and that one sold for $610. 85, 85, 90. It got the 85 subscore for the card, although I would argue that's probably a little overgraded. You can see some litho damage in the upper right, a little faint crease on the left-hand side by the blister, some light edge wear on the bottom. So this is a case where I would argue that the subscore, anyway, of the card 85 was probably too high. And, does it deserve the 85 overall? You can make that argument that it does, but I think that just happens sometimes, especially if you send in, several high-grade items together, that maybe the grader will sometimes pull up the grades for some of the lesser items. And I'm not saying this is a lesser item, but maybe relative to some of the others in this batch, that maybe some of them were graded at the same time, maybe they weren't. I don't know. I'm just speculating. But to me, that was a little overgraded. I think this is more like an 80 plus to me, but very nice item. $610, big number there. And then going back to the AT-AT driver, here's what I was talking about. So that one was an ungraded, unpunched example that sold for $305. And I'm not trying to compare this to the AFA 85, but you can see very clearly that this was not nearly as good of condition. But $305, I think it gets the 80 grade overall. And then you go to the AT-AT driver. This is an AFA 85, so very high grade. And we've seen some AFA 85s for the AT-AT driver Trilogo go for significantly higher than this price of $627. 35 bids on that. But that's a big number relative to what we've seen recently. I think it was even CIB that sold it, and I think it sold for $800 to $850. Don't quote me on that, but that seems to be what I remember. So that came down a little bit in price. The AT-AT Commander General Veers. This was an unpunched example, again, graded AFA 85, very high grade. This is not obviously the Spanish PBP figure that's inside the blister with the pale face. That is another variation you can find for the Trilogo AT-AT Commander. $637 on that one. Next up was a very tough to find hybrid Trilogo for the Bespin Security Guard. Both the black and the white Bespin Security Guard came on this cardback. So it looks like a standard Palitoy on the front, but it's got the Trilogo back. And these are very desirable items. This was an AFA 85 and sold for $641. About what I expected. I was thinking like $650 tops. And that one was a beauty. I was tempted to bid on that one as well, but it just kind of went a little higher than I expected. And I was waiting to bid on another one. Here was an unpunched Princess Leia in her indoor combat poncho, AFA 80. That one sold for $698. I did have a bid for about $600 set up on this one, but it blew past that number with about a minute to go. So I said, gotta let it go. Gotta let it go. If it goes past my number, I'm not going to chase it. So I could see spending that money though. I mean, it's not one you see pop up that often, and it had two really high subgrades of 85 and 90. So I think if I had been in a different situation, I probably would have gone up to $700, but I had already won one that was a lot of money, so I couldn't bid on that one too, unfortunately, or go any higher than what I had bid up. Here was the Rebel Commando AFA 85. The Rebel Commando is a tough one to find, and that one sold for $787. Big number there. Looks like it maybe has the smaller blister on it. It's kind of smaller than the typical Trilogo blister. So whether that's the Meccano blister or not, I don't know. To me, it looks like it, but AFA does not break that out usually on the AFA label. But this one's, you can see the difference in the color versus the German Parker carbacks. It's a much darker, deeper shade of red, or excuse me, of yellow versus the German Parkers, and it's got the smaller but wider, that's what she said, hang tab versus the longer, thinner. So $787 on that Rebel Commando. That's one I really would like to get one day, but just wasn't good timing. Unpunched A-Wing Pilot. That's a very nice example for $715. This one also did have the Clipper catalog on the back, AFA 85. Straight 85s. Good price on that one if you ask me. Here is another one, Ramba. This one sold for $867. Again, it was an AFA 85, 80, 85, 90. And it was pretty, but it wasn't that pretty, right? You can see the card had a little faint vein on the back that I would argue would, in my opinion, okay, I'm not trying to dog the item, but in my opinion, that should preclude it from getting an overall 85 if you got that noticeable of a vein on the back of the card. So I feel like all the unpunched examples they were bid up, and I get it. It's hard to find Palitoy Trilogos that are unpunched, and it does make, it does make for a nice presentation, and the last 17 figures are a little easier to find unpunched versus some of the other characters, but to me that price was a little high at $867. Just my personal opinion on that. Next up, we got a Palitoy Trilogo Luke Jedi Knight. This one definitely had the Meccano French blister on it, and that's a beauty. It was a AFA 85, straight 85s for the subscore. Punched example, $711 was the final price on that one. But that's a price I'd pay in a heartbeat, especially for that harder to find French Meccano blister. That was a beauty. Next up, here is the one I did get. This is the Leia Bespin AFA 85. You could make an argument that it's maybe a little overgraded because it's got a blister score of 90, but you can see very clearly that it has some of the paint. It's either paint inside the blister or that scuff is on the back of the card. I don't know for sure which one it is, but I guess we'll find out when it gets here. But that one was one that I would really wanted to get. I love that image of Leia there. And kind of one of my first major heroes on the Trilogo card back. So that one did sell on 19 bids. Next up, we had an unpunched removable limb C-3PO. I was shocked by this final sales price at $1130. I get it, it's unpunched, and it was a very high-grade AFA 85, but we've seen some AFA 80s and even 80 pluses that have sold for less than half this price, like $450, $475, so a little surprised that one went up all the way to $1,130. Next up, we've got the Trilogo Death Star droid. This is one I do have in my collection, and I did pick it up from CIB, and it did sell for more than what I paid for mine back on September 5th. That was the last item I picked up. This one did sell for $1328. Big number on that one. But 85, 80, 85. I think mine is straight 85s, but don't quote me on that. But that one was, that character is a very tough one to find on the Trilogos, and I was pleasantly surprised to see that one sell for a little bit more than what I paid for mine at $1328. Next up, obviously, this one was going to go for a lot of money because it's an AFA 90. I'm very positive that this one is the highest graded on the population report, but this one was an unpunched Klaatu skiff guard outfit, AFA 90, $1525. We've seen some AFA 90s for common characters on Trilogos go for stupid money. I mean, like double this price, like $3,000. So I'm actually surprised this one stayed as low as it did at 1525, but that's the number it did. I don't remember some of the other characters that were, you know, again, common characters, but high grade AFA 90s that CIB has sold over the last 4 or 5 months. But I do remember a couple of those AFA 90s going for over 2,500, $3,000, 3,500. So pleasantly surprised to see that one stay a little bit lower for whoever bought it anyway. So that one was a good deal there. Next up, another big time number. I'm shocked that this one stayed as low as it did. This one is the R5D4 AFA 90. Unpunched, beautiful example. And we've seen some AFA 85s go for close to this price. 1532, you could make an argument is a highway robbery relative to what the AFA 85 sold for lately. There was an AFA 85 that I don't remember the final sales price, but it was at this price or potentially even higher. So I was surprised that one stayed as low as it did, but good deal there for whoever got it. No big surprise here. This one was an AFA 85 Luke Stormtrooper. Mine's an AFA 80. I think that they did sell an AFA 80 for about $1,800 in an auction. This one was an AFA 85, straight 85s for the sub score. So it only stayed at 2025. I thought for sure this one would hit 2,500 given that it's an AFA 85, but it's still a high price. Don't get me wrong, but 2025 is still a lot lower than where it has been selling. But on the other end of the spectrum is this one. This one was a single graded, so not even having any sub scores. Okay. AFA 85. And it was a punched example too. It's not like it was an unpunched example. Punched example, Emperor's Royal Guard, and it sold in an auction for $6,300. I couldn't believe that final sales price. You know, to me, I was thinking $2,500 max, but we have seen one that sold recently for closer to $3,000, if not above it. But $6,300 for a single score, old grade AFA 85 is a big number. Obviously, 2 people put in nuclear bids. $6,300. I'll be curious to see if they actually paid on that price or whether we see this one get relisted. But $6,300 is crazy. That's a crazy number for a Trilogo ERG. But we've seen some crazy prices for some of these items in past market updates. I would say that this might be the craziest price we've seen yet for a Trilogo. Now, again, it is the Emperor's Royal Guard. It's a very tough one to find on this card back, but I've seen examples, maybe not AFA 85s, but certainly 80 grades that have sold in that $1,800 to $2,500 range, even on Facebook. So $6,300 is nuts. And time will tell whether they actually paid, whether this is kind of the new market norm. I don't think it is personally, but wow, what an insane final number for that ERG. That's all I really had for this video. If you enjoyed this video, please leave me a like. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll be back soon.